Mo Nguyen. All of us know Mo. Graduated from USC from what I see here, in 1998. Is that correct? Or about that time. And is that correct? Yeah. And Mo spent time doing ultra-wideband with Bob Schultz. He's been credited justly as among the originators, or the originator with Bob Schultz on ultra-wideband. And I told him I'll take credit for that because he asked me for the power spectral density once in my room. But Mo spent time at JPL many years. Then he went to Bell Labs, and from there he went to MIT, that lesser school there in the East Coast. And he's having a grand career. He's collected a great number of awards. They're all in the program. I will isolate the fact that he's an IEEE fellow, plus he has gotten paper awards, the Eric Sumner paper award, plus another one. The second one, the Eric Sumner, is on ultra-wideband. And Mo, I believe he will discuss today network localization, navigation, and things related to that topic. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Mo.
It's a great pleasure to be here. This is one place that I wouldn't miss every time I come back to the West Coast. I always come through. This is a place that I learned so much, and I have slightly different experience that I use everything that I learned from USC, and everything that I didn't learn, it always catch up. So I had to figure out the hard way. And I'm going to talk about what I have been doing in the context of what I've learned at USC. So if I am allowed to, I would like to dedicate this short presentation to many teachers and mentors here at USC, but also many friends and colleagues that I made here, and staff. It was just a wonderful crew here. I keep friends with almost everyone that I met here, and I try to stay in touch with all of them. So what I have been doing, I break them into so-called the physical layer. This is sort of what people classified as, and as you can see, my lab, once I joined MIT, I started a lab, and a lot of USC is part of me, so communication, sciences, this is part of it. Okay. So some of the things that we work on, these are the things that you can just read the names. Lots of what I learned at USC: synchronization, E664, acquisition. This is a sequence of great papers that Polydorus have written. Work on diversity things. I actually didn't realize I learned diversity stuff at USC, but indeed I did. There was a lot of papers that Reed and Lindsay have written on this topic. Certainly ultra-wideband, ranging a lot of sequences theory that I learned at USC all goes into that, and fair amount of measurement and modeling that we do. And it's noticed that the top part in the green is supposed to represent part of the experimentation, and part at the bottom is supposed to represent the theory. And you see that even if we're doing measurement and modeling, we do fair amount of theoretical thinking. Our experimentations are driven by theoretical questions and so on. So this is what we've been doing for the last 15 years or so. But more recently, I've started to think of things like this. So how do I think of interference that generated in a network? How do we coexist? So the other things that I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about this, so I'll skip this. Time-aware networks. So these are like networks that know the time, networks that try to understand. So I asked Professor Schultz some times ago how to think about model clocks and so on. He says, go talk to who? You know everybody, go talk to Lloyd Welch. So go to Professor Welch's office, and he taught me things like infinitely divisible distribution to model clocks. I don't know, he still remember. He taught me about stable distribution, all of that. Not only he mentioned to me, I said, what are they? And he goes to the bookshelf, pull out his book, and taught me all about this sort of stuff. So we're using all of these theory to model networks and understand the aggregate interference of the network and so on. And recently, we are thinking about secrecy that provided by physics. So how do you exploit environment to create secrecy? Okay, so this is sort of like a big overview of it, and let me focus on this particular one, and I will tie this to more details of what I learned at USC. So this is just the situation. So this is a big picture. One other thing I learned among many things is to have a big picture about your research. So we are interested in networks that know where the position is. And position information is important. Just a previous speaker have made a good point about position information. So the problems that we're looking at is that this is difficult because you need to have not only reliable, but you need efficient location information in situation where you might not even have a GPS. And you want to do that by exploiting both spatial information and temporal cooperation. And you wanted to do it in a distributed fashion so that you don't require a lot of infrastructure. And there are lots of challenges, and I will try to highlight some of the challenges and some of the things that we've done and some of the open issue. We will look at all of this picture from a perspective of first trying to understand what is the best we can do. So what are the ultimate limits? And once we know the ultimate limits, we'll try to look at how do we design algorithms that approach to these limits, and certainly experimentation. How do you do experiment? What you learn from experiment will help refine or create new theories. So these are the theme of the thread that we will try to do. So to start with, we will localize where we are in the network by exploiting cooperation. And the first thing that we start is to think about metric. What is the right performance metric? And since we're going to be doing some amount of theory, the metric has to be tractable. And the other thing that we look for is the metric that does not depend too much on the underlying theory, so that the results that you get is going to be fairly general. So what we look at is that we look at the metric called square position error bound. This is the mean square error given by the information inequality. So this is the kind of thing that I learned in information theory course at USC, how to derive information inequality. You also learned it in EE 563 estimation theory course. And Math 541 used to be a statistics course. This is what you learn. Okay? And so this is a metric. It's fairly general, fairly independent of the theory, and then we will use this metric. So the next thing that we look at this metric and says, what can we learn? So we derive, first of all, this metric depends on Fisher information matrix. So we go and derive the Fisher information matrix, and our results show that the information about position, let's say P is the position, is the sum of the individual information, some coming from having the anchors in the network. Anchors are like base station, as well as information coming from cooperation. Okay. And this part is to reduce this information matrix from a huge matrix into something that you really need. So this is the smaller matrix that the essence of this. So to reduce this, you use something called Schur complement, and this is what you can learn in EE441. So what is this? So let's look at a little bit of this information coming from anchors. It has a beautiful structure, and of course beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but some of you will agree with me that it has a very nice structure. So first of all, information coming from anchors is a block diagonal matrix. Each block is 2 by 2, and it's the weighted sum of the information coming from all the anchors. So I will elaborate on it a little bit, but please note that this is just a 2 by 2 matrix, and this is what we call ranging information. So I will elaborate it in a little bit in the next slide. So if you think about this, this is the information that coming from anchors, and this is about the position of the node K. So if you can imagine this node, the information coming from anchors will add up. So if you have 3 anchors, you have 3 information. And in particular, this is the rank 1 matrix. So it has only one eigenvalue, one non-zero eigenvalue with the corresponding eigenvector that it gives you the direction. So if you make a ranging measurement with respect to this anchor, you will gain information along one direction. And how much you gain depends on this quantity lambda, which I will elaborate on it a little bit. If you make a measurement with respect to this anchor, you'll gain information in one dimension because these are all rank 1 matrix. Again, eigenvalues and eigenvectors, EE441, and to some extent you learn it in EE562A. And I will talk about EE562A in a minute before Professor Polidoros asks me a question. So this is so-called the ranging information intensity, and I'm going to talk about it. This is the 2 by 2 matrix. So let's go to the ranging information intensity. So we can get results like this. So how much information you get from making ranging with one particular anchor depends on things like bandwidth. So beta square is the effective bandwidth, which I will talk about it a little bit. And this is the information that get reduced. So this is between 0 and 1, so this always subtract. And then this is the signal to noise ratio of the first path. So what that means is that if you receive a waveform like that, wideband waveform with lots of multipath, whenever you see a break, none of these things matter. The key thing is the first path that is matter, and these things sort of cloud your ability to estimate the time of arrival of the first path, and this reduction of this mess is taken care of in this term, and the bandwidth is that gives you, because the larger the bandwidth, the narrower the pulses, so you get the better time of arrival information, and signal to noise ratio only of the first path, okay, only of the first path. Now, if you look at the situations like that, none of these matter, so this go to nice expressions like this, and this is what you learn if you go to like a EE563. This is the detection of the time of arrival in the presence of AWGN. So the results is that even if you are in a multipath, you get the same results as the AWGN-like results, as long as multipaths get separated out in the situations like this. Okay. So I'm going to talk another thing. So this is called the interpretation. So how do we think about this? So one of the things that I learned in 562A is something called covariance matrix factorization. Okay, so these are eigenvalues and eigenvectors. How do you diagonalize the matrix? So this is what I learned in EE563A. So you do the same thing, take the Fisher information matrix, do the diagonalization, and you can talk about this thing called information ellipse. Information ellipse is the set of all x that satisfy this thing. And you can draw ellipse with the major and minor x's. So this kind of reminds me of the peanut diagram that Professor Polidoros draw in his 562A stuff, right? So it's kind of have a eigenvalue and eigenvector, and I know that Keith Chugg was my office mate, and he makes these, all of them in LaTeX, and he draws these peanut diagrams that flying around the office. This is basically all of that stuff. Okay, so now the thing though is that the bigger the ellipse, the more information that you have. So there is a mapping from these Fisher information matrix to the ellipse, and information ellipse completely characterize how to think about the location information. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another one. Oh, by the way, this is not just the peanuts and ellipse and eigenvalues that is not useful. So let's suppose you're in a disaster situation and you don't have big enough ellipse, meaning you don't have big enough information. What you can do is that you can bring in the helper node and you make a new measurement, meaning that you're going to gain one-dimensional information, not much more. Okay, only one dimension, and your ellipse get bigger. Therefore, you get better localization capability. So this is how you think of the localization problem in terms of what I learned at USC. Now, one thing that I would do though is that I will describe that now using all of what I learned and all of this insights. I'm going to describe the cooperation. So here's the situations. You have these three anchors trying to help this guy to localize. So you make these three measurements. You have a corresponding ellipse. You have these three anchors. This guy will localize, so make three measurements. So you gain three different directions, and you have an ellipse. Okay? So this is non-cooperation. Now, when you cooperate this nodes and this node, you gain additional information, but not in any direction, only in the direction along this line. So this is the new direction. And of course, your information ellipse will grow. And this is how it's going to go. So you can go to a dynamic network. You can study other things. So I will go into to mention very quickly of a few things. I'm going to leave the navigation aspects to my poster. I'm going to talk about, just in 5 minutes, other things that I learned. Okay? So one of the directions that we take is to how to allocate the power in such a network like that. So since I have this metric, I'm going to optimize this metric. So what I do is I can turn it into optimization problems. So this is what I learned. Actually, I didn't learn it in too much of it, but Professor Schultz came from Stanford, so he told me about this Leuenberger book on optimization, little red book. But I couldn't read it, it was too complicated. So I have to go and take a Math 570 A and B called linear operator theory and Hilbert space and so on. Once I learned it, I can read that red book, and here's how it's going to go, is that now you can minimize this in the constraint like this. Okay? What we can show is that this thing is a convex function, so this is a convex optimization problem, and you can do two things. I'm just going to quickly tell you the results. The first thing that we can show is that this metric that we have is convex, and also it has the following structure. So this structure allows us to prove the following, that our optimization problem is a second-order cone program, which means that there are lots and lots and lots of algorithms that people have developed efficiently, so you can use to do this network power optimization. This is the first result. So from this result, so these are like a numerical results because the program go and crank and give you the results. And we realize that this value x that you obtain is very sparse. Is almost zero except one or two things. And so we went and showed that indeed this non-zero element is at most 3 in the optimal vector. So this is my last slides. If you have a network like that, you have a lot of anchors. Some are too far, so you don't need this. Some has a bad topology. In other words, the information along this line you could have gotten from this guy because they're almost in the same line. This thing has a bad channel, so you can throw it away and you only need 3. And so these are the results. We have, from there we develop algorithms. I'll leave a poster and I am going to conclude my presentation here.